Hello, EduMagicians. Welcome to the EduMagic podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of EduMagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
Hi, I'm Adam Geis.
I'm David Lurch.
We're hosts of the EdTech Distilled podcast, which is a part of the Education Podcast Network.
Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, EduMagicians, and welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic podcast. My name is Dr. Sam Fessich, and today I have with me Melissa Conte. I'm sure you have heard of her because she is a resume and cover letter guru. She's all over Facebook and Instagram, and it's about time I have her on the show sharing all about resumes and cover letters. It's going to be a job interviewing season soon enough. It's never too early to update that resume and glance over your cover letter, right? So she's going to be sharing tips and strategies to help support you when it comes to writing, revising, how to organize your resume, all those good fun things. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Of course. So let's start off with your teaching story. What brought you into education and what keeps you coming back?
Well, I just knew from an early age, most teachers do, that I wanted to be a teacher. From babysitting, I was always involved in dance, teaching dance. So I began really as an elementary educator, but I quickly shifted to math education because I had a degree. I did elementary ed, and then I had a degree in math. I did a dual major side by side. So I taught after I made the shift to math education, I taught there for over 15 years in private and public school settings, taking on several leadership roles over the course of my career. So curriculum coordinator, that type of thing. And I naturally gravitated toward the doctoral route. And now I'm an adjunct professor at Hofstra University on Long Island. And I'm in their School of Ed, where I teach pre-service and in-service math educators. And about 2 years ago, I was on bed rest, pregnant with twins, and the pandemic had just hit. Everybody was homebound. I said, what can I do from home? And that's when I started my consulting business. So now I'm a resume writer, interview coach. I write cover letters, anything job related for teachers. I'm one of the people you call to do that. So,
yes, you are. Yes, you are.
All over the country. Now, I'm not just local to New York. So it's been amazing. I wrote for somebody in Singapore. I've written for people in Canada. It's been very wild. And as I mentioned when we were talking earlier, it's the power of the internet that really allows us to get together and share everything we know, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And I'm a huge fan of all the stuff that you do supporting teachers who are looking to either do a career switch or they're just starting in their education career journey and search. And you are there to support them every step of the way. So thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's jump into some of our questions today. What are some must-haves in our resumes and our cover letters?
Sure. So we are in the digital age. There's no doubt about it. And the most important thing that you can have on your resume and in your cover letter are buzzwords. So I tell my clients 9 times out of 10, your resume is getting uploaded to some kind of applicant tracking software. So anytime those documents go on there, an administrator's on the other end searching for their ideal candidate. And you need to have the vocabulary words on your resume to get picked up by their search. And that's usually where I come in because people don't often, they don't know what those buzzwords are. But really, it's differentiation, anything having to do with the data that you take on your students and that you analyze, whether it be through formative assessment, summative assessment, and diversity. So if you have gone through some kind of diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which a lot of schools are taking initiatives for that now, that's important to include. Anything you've been doing with social emotional learning. And, and this is all coming from elementary through high school. So if you're a social studies teacher, a math teacher, a pre-K teacher, it doesn't matter. All the tips I'm giving you today are universal.
Awesome. Fantastic. I think it's important not to only use the buzzwords, but know what they mean. So when you're asked about them, you have a good answer as to how you implemented those.
Yes, it definitely needs to be authentic. So you're not just going to include the buzzwords that you heard. You're going to include the buzzwords that you do and you know.
I like that. Include the buzzwords that you do and that you know. Whenever we're writing our resume and our cover letter, Melissa, should our cover letter just be like a carbon copy of everything we can find in our resume?
So I like to approach my cover letters as if you're telling a story. And I usually start with getting the nuts and bolts stuff out of the way. So if you're an administrator, you need to know if you're legally able to hire the candidate. So I start off by stating what my certifications are and what state am I certified, right? If you have multiple certifications, I put the one for whatever the job I'm applying for, I state it. So I get like the nuts and bolts out of the way first.
Sure.
And then I start talking about the candidate's most recent teaching experience and who the population is, what teaching strategies I use. Some people do like they want like a very general like philosophy of education thing, but I tend to go towards, again, talking about what you do and what you know. And you'll just be amazed how many more buzzwords you can get on your cover letter by approaching it that way.
I like that approach. Would you suggest candidates write their resume first or their cover letter?
Resume first, always.
Yes, 100%. Once we have those two documents ready to roll, how can we make them stand out from the pile of the stack of other resumes and cover letters that an administrator is going through?
Well, you want to make sure that your resume is errorless. So even if in New York especially, I know you work with educators in Pennsylvania, but I'm sure this has a national reach through your podcast. You cannot have an error on your resume.
No.
You want to make sure everything's consistent too. So if you're going to use periods at the end of your bullets, every bullet better have a period. Yes. I tend not to use periods, just as another FYI. But anyway, it must be consistent. It has to be errorless. It needs to be well organized. And you don't want it to be too busy visually. Some candidates come to me and say, I want to have color on the resume. And that's fine. You can do that. But again, 9 times out of 10, your resume is going to be digitally sent. It's going to be printed on a black and white printer. So whatever color that you put on there, you have to make sure it doesn't print as a blob or it doesn't print how you don't intend it to print. So make sure you print it in black and white and see if that looks good. Otherwise, you're going to have to change up your tones a little bit.
That's a great point because you don't want it to print and have it be, if it's a lighter blue, it's just going to show up light gray on a black and white printer.
Exactly.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
The things that people don't think about.
Yeah, it's in the little things. And I absolutely agree that resume and cover letter need to be errorless. So what I suggest to some of my students is to read it out loud to yourself, because sometimes when you read it silently, your brain fills in all those words that may not be there. So read it out loud to yourself. Does it sound like you in your resume and your cover letter, or do you sound robotic and like a textbook? So you want to make sure that you have that personal element, that it sounds like you in that resume or that cover letter.
That's a great point. Exactly.
Whenever my students come to me and they have questions about their resume, I have 2 questions for you. Should they use a template?
So templates are absolutely fine to use. A lot of my clients are sending me things, or templates rather, that they've found on Etsy or they've downloaded them online. And they're really beautiful templates. But they have a setup where there's a column on 1/3 of the page, and then another column that fills up 2/3 of the page. So what happens is they tend to put like all their information and contact information, certifications, that stuff in the skinny column. And then in that wider column, they're putting their bullets in. And what happens is really the bullets of your resume is the most important part. That's where all your buzzwords are going in. So you're squishing everything into 2/3 of the page. So it's very, short, it's very difficult to write well-developed bullets in a short space like that. So I tend to encourage people to use a more traditional layout. With no graphics. A lot of times templates also have charts, boxes, lines. Applicant tracking software cannot read any of those elements. So you have to write it and present it in a way that's easy for the software to read.
Oh, yes. That's such a great point because we don't think it. We just look at it visually. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. And we can do the L thing from Legally Blonde. We can scent it and it'll be stunning, all those things. But we need to make sure that the applicant tracker software or system that the district is using will pick up the content that you wanted to see, those buzzwords, those important phrases that are related to that job. Let's talk about length, Melissa. How long should our resume be?
If you're brand spanking new, 1 page. If you have several teaching experiences, 2 pages is okay. I have clients, I work with about probably 1,000 clients a year, and they get hired with 2-page resumes. Sometimes I get feedback during the draft process where I'm editing, and people say, "Oh, is it okay that it's 2 pages? I've heard a resume should be 1 page." Listen, if you have that experience, sell it. My clients get hired all the time with 2-page resumes, but I would not go beyond 2 pages. 2 pages max, front and a back.
So we have our resume. It is 1 page or 1 page front and back if you're a seasoned veteran educator. How do we organize it? Because it can be a little confusing. What do we put in there? How do we organize all that content?
So your contact information needs to be legible and clear. I usually have a nice header at the top where your email address and phone number go. I include an address as well. Some people just do the city and the state. Sometimes during the job search, proximity is a factor.
Right.
So including your address is important. And then also to start with an objective. Some people say that resumes with objectives are passé. And in my experience working with administrators at the college level, they need to know what job you're applying for.
Yeah.
They have stacks and stacks and piles on their desks. So an objective allows you to identify, hey, I'm applying for the elementary education position, or I'm applying for the secondary ed math position. So I always put an objective in. Now, in the business world, that might be out of date. You might do something more like a summary or a profile. But for education, I'm a big fan of just sticking the traditional route and really focusing on what the administrator needs to know first. After that, you're going to go into your teaching experience. So if you're a new teacher, that'll be your student teaching.
Yes.
And if you've had 2 student teaching experiences, you separate those 2 experiences out. And never, ever, ever, if you have a bullet in one experience, do not repeat the same exact bullet verbatim in the second experience.
Yes, Melissa, go.
And it's for no other reason. Well, 1, for me, maybe it shows a little bit of laziness, but 2, you have another opportunity to get more buzzwords on your resume.
Yes, you do.
Change up the language for your other experiences there. And if you have already been in the classroom, you're looking to change from one school to another or one position to another, then all of your teaching experience will go there. If you've only had one teaching experience or maybe a leave replacement, it's okay to leave your student teaching on. But if you've been teaching for a number of years, you really don't need your student teaching at that point.
Okay, that's good.
After your teaching experience, you really need some supporting experience. So some people are childcare providers in their spare time. Some people lifeguard. Some people coach cheerleading or coach sports. That goes in your supporting section. And that just shows that you have additional involvement with kids, or you're interested in other passions or endeavors outside of your teaching. It just shows that you're well-rounded. And I would limit the bullets there because it's really not going to get you many buzzwords. However, if you're coaching, you never know. They could need a soccer coach if you coach soccer. So make sure that soccer buzzword's on there. And then after your supporting experience, any related skills you have. So if you're Google certified, if you speak another language, anything, any volunteering that you do, anything that shows other sides of who you are goes into that section as well. Sometimes I do need a little bit of a space filler, and I'll put in a references and put available upon request. And that's as far as I'll go. If I'm out of room on the person's resume, I don't put it at all, because the words references, available upon, and request are not searchable buzzwords. So save your references for a completely different document.
Nice. Yeah, we have a whole episode about references and letters of recommendation and just some best practices when it comes to that. So friends, if you're listening, that's like, oh yeah, I got to get those. I'll put the link to the show notes in the show notes to that episode where we talk specifically about recommendations and references. Melissa, what about people who are career switchers? They haven't been in corporate or business, and now they're moving into education. They're graduating with their teaching degree. What strategies do you have for them?
Well, first off, as a career changer, you're actually a highly desirable candidate because you possess the maturity of a seasoned veteran, and you have the openness of learning and being molded as an educator.
Nice.
So some school districts are very excited to receive career changers. So you want to keep the same format we spoke about earlier, but you can also add a section called prior work history, where you list the title, the date range, the name of the company you worked for, and maybe one or two bullets describing what you did or describing what kind of company it is. You don't want to use your business resume bullets on the education resume, but you can let them know, hey, I have experience in the corporate world or the professional world in these areas. And then it's kind of like a signal to an administrator that you're a career changer and you have experience elsewhere.
Right. I like how you said that they're highly sought after candidates.
Yeah, well, it's true. A lot of college kids are graduating and they can be a little unsure of themselves in the classroom. And look, a lot of students who graduate from college and go right into teaching have the confidence to step into their own classroom. Others might benefit from taking on a permanent sub role at first, or taking a leave replacement at first and really getting your footing there. So there's a place for everybody and everything. Don't feel like you're at a disadvantage because you're right out of college. Don't feel like you're at a disadvantage just because you're a career changer either.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Melissa, before we end today, are there any other tips or strategies that you have for candidates listening in about resumes and or cover letters?
Well, one thing that I tell everybody is to apply to everything. Even if it's not your goal to be a permanent sub, apply for the permanent sub role. You could be on a permanent sub interview and the panel says, hey, you'd be great for this leave replacement that just popped up.
Right.
Or we actually have a probationary position in blah, blah, blah that you would be great for. So go on the leave replacement interview. It gives you that interview experience, and you never know what opportunities, what other opportunities can come from that. As far as the resume and the cover letter itself, another tip, now that I'm thinking of it, get yourself a Gmail account.
Sure. Yeah.
If you have an AOL or a Hotmail, I'm sorry, you are in the no pile.
90s.
Exactly. And I feel bad saying that. I personally know administrators who say, I don't hire. This goes right in the no pile.
Wow.
If it's yes, the New York market is very competitive, extremely competitive. There's sometimes 1,000 applicants per job where I'm located on Long Island. So the administrator can do whatever they want with your resume.
Mhm.
They can put it in the no pile, put it in the yes pile, based on any little thing. Oh, this word is misspelled. No pile. Oh, this is a Hotmail account. No pile.
Mhm.
Oh, this resume is too busy. So you never know what they're thinking, and you want to appeal to everybody
Right.
when you're crafting your resume.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. So if you don't have a professional Gmail account, professional meaning like first name, last name, or first initial, last name, you don't want it to be supercutie123@gmail.com, but you want it to be a professional sounding email.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, Melissa, I know I have candidates listening in waiting to get to this question. How can they connect with you? Because they're like, oh my gosh, I need some help. So what are some ways they can connect?
If you want to connect with me, if you need some advice, I offer free reviews of your current resume. You can email those to me at melissaconteresumes@gmail.com. You can connect with me over Instagram, melissaconte11, and just send me a message, shoot me an email, and we'll go from there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melissa. I have so many notes jotted down over here. I'll make sure I put everything in the show notes relating to resumes, cover letters, how to organize them, how long they should be, what are some must-haves we have to have on them, how can we make them stand out. One of the gems that really stood out to me was definitely the Gmail email account. So they have that access to you, and it doesn't look dated with an AOL, a Yahoo, or a Hotmail. So thank you so much for your time, Melissa. This has been such a fun episode.
Thank you. This was great. I hope to connect with you again.
Absolutely. All right, my friends, hope you have a fantastic day. And remember, you have the Edu Magic within you.
And there you have it, Edu Magicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more Edu Magic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram @sfessage. Until next time, you have the Edu Magic within you.